In the 1918 revised preface to the Philosophy of Freedom, Rudolf Steiner states, "If a soul has never seriously inquired into the question of freedom or necessity, it will not have reached its full stature." In other words, if you do not earnestly question whether your action is free or not free, you will not reach your full stature, which means you will be less of a human being than you should be. In Chapter 1, Conscious Human Action, we study the different elements of an act of will: the agent or I, the motive, the character, and the action. In each topic, we are asked to question our freedom. Is it real freedom or merely an illusion of freedom? We aren't given an answer yet, but it is important to prepare the ground by questioning the freedom we naively believe we have. Questioning freedom is another step on the path toward attaining our full stature as an ethical individualist. The chapter begins with the question of freedom in thought and in action. Is a human being free in thought and action, or compelled by the unyielding necessity of natural law? In the first case, we question the freedom of indifferent choice. Throughout our daily life, we face many choices between two possible actions. Should we do our laundry or clean the dishes? Should we read a book or exercise? These daily choices are usually made out of the will, which means we remain indifferent and just willfully act from one action to the next without serious consideration. We have a sense of freedom believing we could do something else, but we don't do something else. Scientific research has shown that the freedom of indifferent choice, believing we are not lawfully compelled, is an illusion. There's always a reason that determines why we act. The research also shows that the doer is unlikely to be conscious of the real reason for the action. The next case questions freedom of choice. For example, when we vote, we believe the agent or I is free to choose one candidate over another. But a voter's choice is not really a free choice. It is determined by desire, and we are not free to desire or not desire arbitrarily. Political parties understand that the choice of candidates is based on desire. They use negative narratives to inflame hate for the other side, because this is the most effective way to arouse a desire that will determine the voter's choice. Next is the free necessity of one's nature. This case does not locate freedom in choice, but rather in free necessity. This refers to our nature, the qualities and needs we have as a human being. Our nature gives us a necessity to express ourselves and live our life in a certain way. You hear people say they must be allowed to be their genuine selves and true to themselves. This free necessity is questioned by noting that our nature, however complex, has been built up by external causes of family, culture, and so forth to make us act in a fixed and exact way. Next, we free ourselves from external causes by having character. We do not accept every idea that is presented to us from the outside. Young people face peer pressure to accept today's trendy ideas about ways to be promiscuous. A person with character rejects those outer ideas and will only accept an idea that meets the approval of their character. So they are determined from within and not outside. This freedom of character is questioned by the necessity of our established character. Our character has been built according to the ethical training and practices we follow, which becomes the determinant of action that removes our freedom. The behavior of a practicing Christian or Muslim is predictable in many cases. All the cases discussed so far are dealing with unconscious motives that compel our behavior. The next case locates freedom in having a conscious motive. A problem here is that we have plenty of conscious motives, but often don't act on them. Take the environmentalists, for example. As an ethical individualist, we want to become a knowing doer, the one who acts out of knowledge. In case 6, freedom is found in the one who acts out of knowledge, by being controlled by rational decisions. The person makes deliberate decisions and sets purposeful life goals. This freedom is questioned because we can become obsessed with our goals. You can also question the freedom of our rational thinking if it occurs in us without our involvement. You often hear a group member repeat a rational argument that they have learned in the group. They merely repeat it without doing any of their own thinking. And we can rationalize our behavior to try and justify inappropriate acts. The next case is about those who know what they want to do and just need the freedom to do it. They are driven by strong motives that contain an understood reason and an impassioned desire to carry it out. They are highly motivated. All they need are the resources to successfully fulfill their goals. We all have various motives. Some are stronger than others. Here, the freedom of being driven by the strongest motive is questioned. How can we be free if we are forced by the motive to do it? To free ourselves from strong motives, we look to the freedom of unconditioned, spontaneous action. This act is an absolute beginning. This freedom is questioned by saying that underlying the spontaneous freedom is an invisible motive. For the animal, the invisible motive is instinct. For a human, it could be an invisible spiritual instinct. Obviously, we can't be free if we don't know why we act. Freedom is to act out of fully known reasons. This freedom of known reasons is questioned by asking, what is the origin of the thought? Most of our thoughts originate somewhere else. They do not originate with us. This raises the question, what does it mean to think and form our own thoughts? Now freedom takes a turn away from thought and is found in the heart. Love, compassion, and patriotism are driving forces for deeds, can't be understood with cold intellectual concepts. But we can escape thought. The way to the heart is through the head. Compassion appears in your heart after the thought of a person who arouses compassion has appeared in your mind. Images that arouse compassion are used in movies and politics to arouse certain feelings to manipulate the emotions. This removes freedom. In the next case, we look at the freedom of acting out of love. But here again, this freedom is questioned because thought is the father of feeling. The more idealistic thoughts you form of someone, the more blissful is your love of them. Love has the determinant of thought. And finally, we end with sense perception. This is action driven by the positive perception of good qualities. The basis of my action is seeing the good. When what you see with your eyes is determined by the perception picture you form. Place a picture of a leading politician before someone, and they will have a positive or negative reaction according to the perception picture they form. What we learn about freedom in this chapter is that every motive of action contains thought. So the question of freedom becomes, what is the origin of that thought? And what does it mean to think to form our own thoughts? These questions are taken up in the chapters that follow. If we are able to think, then we can originate our own free action.